Hello everyone, how are you? Are you fine? Welcome to the class. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Please contact with your friends to attend to the class if possible. Now we are waiting for attending of your friends. There are about 70 people registered at this class, but now we are 4. Thanks. I sent a message in WhatsApp group, but some of your friends are not joined to this group. If you know them, please send a message to them uh, to join to the class. Let me share my screen to show the class is started. Thanks a lot, Mr. Abbas. How are you? Are you fine? Yeah. One of your friends sent a message. I received a message from one of your friends about the material of the course. I'll announce the materials soon, uh, but let's to wait about 5 minutes to attending your friends. Some of your friends do, don't know the class starting at 5:30. I think some of them uh, think about 6 o'clock. The previous session, some of them attend to the class at 6, not at 5:13. So I think they'll attend to the class soon. Thanks, Mr. or Miss Dalal. Okay. Okay. Okay, let me to start some talking about the course, but before we starting, let me to take a record for your friends who are not in the class. Yes, I want to record. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay. Okay, dear friends, I'm very glad to be with you in this course named Advanced Software Engineering. And this is Anwar Bahrampur from Arak University, and I'll present this course at this semester. But what about the syllabus of this course? Probably most of you are familiar with that, with the software engineering syllabus in bachelor grade. Probably you are familiar with object orientation or methodologies for uh, producing softwares. and some methods for analyzing and design software systems. In this course, okay, let's me to see your. Please send your message in English if possible, because your words I get it in inverse words. Okay, welcome, Miss Sarah. Let me go ahead with our syllabus. Please tell me, are you familiar with terms of software engineering methodologies for software for producing software systems and etc.? I think you have passed some courses in bachelor degree. Few, no problem. Just I want to know what you think about the software engineering course. Did you have passed some course in this area in previous degree? Just the phases of software producing. For example, are you familiar with design patterns in object orientation? For example, are you familiar with singleton design pattern, observer design pattern, or other design patterns? No, no. Okay. So you have no heard any about these patterns. Okay. In this course, I'll talk about the complexity of software systems and the ways to organize this complexity in order to produce some software products with high quality. So in the first section of this course, we will introduce you a case study, an ATM case study, to work with a concrete project. In practice, I'll tell you about what classes and objects should be defined in a simple in a mini project such as ATM class, ATM system, and after that we will introduce some principles about object orientation. As you know, as you read in your programming courses, we go ahead with method with introducing some methods for finding analysis classes in each system analysis. After that, we will go ahead through the ways to detecting classes relationships in our system. More especially, we will talk about the generalization, specialization relationships, which is defined by inheritance possibility in object orientation. And after that, we go ahead with some concepts about object-oriented principles, Then we talk about how to implement design classes in design process in implementation phases of the software producing methodology. And then we talk about one session about object-oriented testing, and then we have a midterm exam. After that, probably we present another case study because we have a case study at this session and next sessions. So it might to ignore this case study in about the eighth week of our semester. Then we go ahead with some advanced topics such as the concept of patterns in software engineering, and then we will talk about design and about various design patterns such as creational design patterns and structural design patterns, as well as I'll talk about behavioral design patterns. After that, we talk about architectural patterns in software engineering, which are known as GOV patterns. And finally, we will talk about, if we have enough time, talk about the refactoring patterns in software engineering and anti-patterns. So we have various we have to cover various concepts in this course. Some of them are familiar with you probably, and some not. We will start this course at the basic level, so that they who do not know about these terms could learn enough in this class. Yes, Mr. We will use a Java programming language to implement design classes in this section for implementing classes. In this course, we will produce the skeleton code of the system under consideration. So we will not go through the details of implementation. We just introduce the design of the system under consideration via UML diagrams, and then we will introduce you some methods to implement them as fast as possible. So we have a practice in implementation environment. We will use an Eclipse IDE for Java programming language, but you are free. You can use any other platforms. You can use any other object orientation languages to do your homeworks. There is no necessity to all of you use Java program. If you are familiar with more familiar with, for example, C++, or you are familiar with Python, you can use these languages to do your homeworks. So there is no need necessarily to know about programming Java programming language, but you should be familiar with an object-oriented language such as C++, such as Python, such as Java, and you are free at this area. Okay, let me see. You are now 6%. So welcome new friends to our class. I hope you could attend. You can attend in next sessions on time. Our class will start at 5:13, not 6 o'clock in Tehran time. So it's necessary to join to the class as soon as possible. Okay. Let me go ahead with announce you the references, the main references of this course. Okay, thanks. As you noticed in our talking, we have considered a wide area of software engineering concepts at this course. So we should use several reference books, but and this is difficult for you to have about 4 books for this course, to read 4 books for this course. As you know, I have prepared 4 of them in these slides. There is no necessarily a need to read books, but I introduced you to know the more credible, more famous references for this course, for these concepts, to know and to read when you want. The first of them, one of the best references of pattern-oriented books, is the Pattern-Oriented Software Architecture book, which is published by John Wiley Publisher at 2007. The next one, which probably we will use it at the last sessions, is the Anti-Pattern book, Managing Software Organization and People. This is a very famous book about anti-patterns. And the next one that we will use the concepts of this book, introduced in this book several times at this semester, is the UML2 and the Unified Process book. As you see, this is a practical object orientation and object-oriented analysis and design book, and this book is very famous in the world about UML2. How many of you are familiar with UML? Are you know UML? Are you familiar with UML diagrams? No? Can you hear me? Yes. Are you familiar with the UML diagram? I think you have read enough about UML diagrams in bachelor degree. No? No problem, no problem. We will talk about UML diagrams as needed in this course, and therefore you should be familiar with some tools that we can use them to design the systems under consideration in this course. You should be familiar with them. We will use the omelette tool for UML diagrams, to design UML diagrams about the specification of our system under considerations. So no problem. I will give you enough information about these concepts, and you should practice with these tools and this language. UML is defined by a unified modeling language. It's a modeling language. There are several notations defined in this standard language to model, to specify components of our programs or our system under consideration, to show how many components and how many objects are in the system under consideration. So you should know the UML diagrams to use in the design process. Let me go ahead and introduce the fourth book and the most important book in this course, because most of advanced topics that I want to tell about them is patterns, is software patterns, is the design patterns, and we will use the material of this book, design patterns, and this book is known GOF patterns, gang of four authors. This book has 4 authors, so this book is known in software industry as GOF, gang of 4 book for design patterns. There are several patterns that can be used in several situations in software design, and we will talk about them enough in this course, and I'll introduce you some valuable video materials about these patterns. So the last book is Design Patterns CD, Elements of Reusable Object-Oriented Software. Okay. Besides these non-references, these famous references, we will introduce you several useful links in this semester about the concepts of the course. The first one is the homepage of Professor Raman Ramsins at Sharif University of Technology in Iran. This page is a very valuable page as I use it. Let me see. In this homepage, in his homepage, there are several courses about software engineering, and there are several valuable links and other resources about concepts that we will talk about them in this class. such as patterns in software engineering for graduate students in Sharif University, object-oriented design, and some other courses for undergraduate level, such as agile software development methodologies, patterns in software engineering again, and some other courses are introduced here. And when you go to any of these links, you will see enough about enough resources or lectures about various concepts of the course. Okay, so this is a valuable link that you can use. All of them are in English. Probably you are familiar with Sharif University of Iran, the most prestigious University of Iran is Sharif University of Technology, and there are several assignments and samples and case studies introduced in their in his page for concepts of the pattern designs or design patterns. Okay, and there are more links in this slide. I'll introduce all of them, the contents of them in this course. Most of them are in YouTube platform, and there are famous, very famous lecturer at this page that teach some concepts in this course. If my speaking skill is poor and you have a difficulty with my speaking in English, you could find these concepts in these links. So there are various links, and I'll introduce them to you in appropriate time of this semester. Okay, and finally, in our course description, I have prepared some research studies, some research area to study and do your study project about this course. Okay, Miss Mariam, I will introduce them when they are needed in the course. Okay, I'll send the link of those pages to you. Don't worry, please. Don't worry. Okay. Most of the concepts that we will talk about them in this course, all of them are needed in industrial of software engineering. In industrial, and most of our projects and homeworks are practical, in practical view, and you should gain more skills about designing process, about analyzing, about detecting classes of a system, about requirement gathering, about design patterns. All of them are used now industry widely. So this could be a good course for you to promote your skills for industry. So I have prepared some research area for you to select and do a presentation about them. all of them are valuable terms in industry. There includes, for example, service-oriented architecture. You could study about service-oriented architecture, and you can have a presentation. You could do your presentation in group. Your group could be up to 3 people in this class, and we have enough time for all of your 3 friends to talk about each topic that you select. Okay. The service-oriented architecture is a very famous tech architecture in the industry nowadays, and you should be familiar with them if you want to work at the industry. Another topic is a model-driven architecture and test-driven design, software product line architecture, or secure software architecture, object-oriented testing tools. Others include software validation and verification techniques, software development methodologies. So there are a wide area, wide terminology that you can use to search about them in the web and find enough resources and video materials to know how to work at those areas. Then you should prepare. Each of you should talk about 20 minutes at the class and present a lecture about the selected topic. Then, okay, our grading policy, initially I think that we can dedicate 4 marks to class activities and 5 marks for your presentation activity. After that, we can consider 5 marks for midterm exam. Please note that in the midterm exam, I'll give you a case study, and you should be familiar with practical technique to design and analysis of that case study, and you should produce various models in various point of view, and then you should define some skeleton code about those systems, that system, in both midterm and final exam. So there is no need to memorize some definitions, memorize some materials in these lectures and write them on your sheet, because I want to have a practical class at this course. So I will evaluate your skills, your ability in designing, in analyzing software systems, and in producing the skeleton code for implementation phase or other phases of the software engineering. So please note that your ability, your skills are very valuable for me to allot a high degree for you at this course. Okay, this is a brief introduction about the course materials. I'll send these slides via WhatsApp group to you, and let me to start the main lecture of this session. If you have any question, please ask your questions. Okay. No question. Okay, no problem. Let me go through the next slide. As I told you in the first lecture, I'll give you a case, an ATM case study. Give you a brief definition about the working, how an ATM system works, and we will analyze the requirement document. We will introduce, initially we will introduce a requirement document about designing an ATM system or simulating an ATM system. Then we will analyze the requirement document to detect classes of the system, and then we do more about the design, we will apply more techniques in designing object-oriented systems, and after that we will introduce some skills about how to implement, how to generate a skeleton code from these designed models or UML models. So the first part of our case study is about object-oriented design with UML diagrams. In this lecture, we just use simple notations of UML, and along the course, along the semester, we will introduce more notations in UML language. In this lecture, in this first lecture, we just use class notation and relationship notations among classes from UML language. So there is you are not worried, be not worried about the UML. Let me show full screen. What is the first question is that what's the requirement document in software engineering? As you know, the life cycle of software products, the first phase of the life cycle is requirement gathering. At the end of this phase, we should prepare a brief document, a well-organized document about how the system works, how the system under consideration works, and what it must to do. We should define the working, the application of the system. We should define the necessity, the preconditions, the post conditions of every activity of the system under consideration in requirement document in point of view the end users. Okay, so in the first phase of software development life cycle, we should prepare a requirement document. What is a requirement document? There is a formal definition at this slide about requirement document that said a requirements document specifies the purpose of the ATM system. For example, in this case, we should specify the purpose of ATM system and to talk about what it must to do, what the ATM system must to do at practice. So in this document, we should define enough details of the system activities of the system under consideration activities and the purpose of the system and what it must to do and some situation that should be prepared to work the system properly. For example, in this case study, we define a small requirement document. This case study is a mini project. We consider a local bank that want to define an ATM system which works very simple, do very simple transactions and some other requests from its users. So the first clause tell us about this system, which says a local bank intends to install a new automated teller machine or ATM to allow users or bank customers to perform basic financial transactions. As we will see later, the basic financial transactions include three types of transactions. The first one is the balance inquiry. Each bank customer, each user of the ATM want to know about the amount of money in his account or her account. So the ATM should prepare a possibility so that the user could use it to know about the balance of his or her account. Okay. The second one could be the withdrawal transaction, to take money from her or his account. And the third type is deposit fund, to spend more money to the bank to keep to him. So each user can have only one account at the bank. This is for simplicity of the system under consideration, because if we consider the existing ATM systems, there are several complexities in its working. We should handle some problems such as concurrency, such as parallelism, such as maintaining several accounts for a user, maintaining the ATM system in several branches of a bank. So this could be so complex to handle them at this course initially. So at this time, we try to simplify this system as well as possible. To this aim, we consider the first constraint as this one, which said that each user in this ATM system can have only one account at the bank. This is just for simplicity. And the ATM users could do work with this, could have three request types with this ATM system. The first of them is to want to view their account balance, as I said before, withdraw cash and deposit funds, to add more money to their accounts. Okay, so we have to consider three types of transactions that could be done by this system. But how we define the ATM user interfaces? This is a very limited system, and as I told, this is a mini project, so we limit its interfaces to use for its users. The first interface of the system is a screen that displays messages to the user. As you know, all ATM machines, we work with them at several banks. All of them have a screen to display messages. At this project, we consider our monitor to simulate this screen for a simulated ATM system. And there is a need for a keypad, a numerical keypad, to use by the users to enter their input data, such as amount of money they need, such as the account number, such as the PIN number, as I will talk about them later. And a cash dispenser is needed to dispenses cash to the user. And finally, a deposit slot should be defined in this ATM, this software, to deposit envelopes from the users. So our user interfaces could be defined by these four possibilities: an screen, a keypad, a cash dispenser, and a deposit slot. We have four interfaces, four modules that the users could use them to interact with the ATM system. Let me see your message. Yes, I'll use Java programming language to define the classes, the implemented classes, the design classes. But there is no problem for you, because we just define a skeleton code. We just define classes, and the syntax of Java programming language is similar with C++. If you know, you are familiar with C++ programming language, please don't worry. But if you don't know any about any object-oriented language, you should learn some principles about these languages and how to coding with them. You should be familiar with just an object-oriented language. There is no necessary, especially be the Java programming language. If you are familiar with Python, it's enough. If you are familiar with C++, also there is no problem. But if you are not familiar with any object-oriented programming language, you should know one of them. You should learn one of them. Okay. Another consideration of this system is that the cash dispenser begins each day loaded $500 each day by $20 bills. Each day we charge the machine by 500 bills to give services with their with its users. Okay. At this figure, we see a simple description of our ATM machine. As you see, we have a screen. We have a screen to show the messages to the user, and we should have a numerical keypad to enter their inputs, the user inputs, and a cash dispenser module is considered to dispense the cash, and a deposit slide to deposit funds. Okay. At the first stage of the system, when we want to use an ATM machine, we will see a welcome message, and after that the machine want to enter an account number and PIN number to enter the system and use its possibilities. Let me go ahead and we will define these items at the slides. Excuse me, let me a moment to turn off our mic. I'll return soon. Excuse me. Okay. I'll continue to define the requirement document of the ATM system. After I introduced you the screen and other interfaces of the ATM machine, in this project, we will simulate an ATM system. So we use the keyboard of our system instead of this keypad module, and we use our monitor instead of this screen. So there is no need to consider any other hardwares in this system. Let me go ahead. In this requirement document, it's defined that develop software to perform the financial transactions initiated by the bank customers through the ATM. It's trivial, and there is no need to talk more about this item. The next item said that use the computer's monitor, as I told you, to simulate the ATM's screen, and the computer's keyboard to simulate the ATM's keypad. I told this for you to you. An ATM session is defined at this slide. What's the ATM session? An ATM session consists of authenticating a user based on an account number and the personal identification number, or PIN number. In real ATM machines, we use a card, and when we go to the ATM machine, we insert card into the ATM machine, and it will read our account number automatically. But in this version, in this simulation, we have no any card to use to enter to the system. We just use an account number to identifying the user, because we know each user have only one account at the bank. So an account number can introduce the user, and there is need to know or to define a personal identification, the identification number, as its password to authenticating the user. So when the user refer to the ATM machine, he or she provide an account number and PIN, and the machine should contact with the bank database to recognize the account number and registered PIN number, and compare the input PIN number with the registered PIN number. If both of them are identical or the same, the user could enter to the main menu of the ATM machine, as you have experienced a lot this situation. And then the ATM session should creating and executing financial transactions that are made by the user. Transactions such as balance inquiry, withdrawal, and deposit. To authenticate each of these activities are illustrated in details in these slides. For example, to authenticate a user and perform transactions, interact with the bank database is needed, and the account information should be read from bank database and compare with the introduced account number and PIN number by the user. For each account, the database stores an account number, PIN, and balance. So we should store 3 values for each account that include account number, PIN, and balance, which balance indicating the amount of money in that account. This sentences define briefly how to work this ATM machine, and we try to complete these definitions or this requirement document. There are some simplifying assumptions made in this slide to define a simpler project, simpler ATM machine. The first one is that the bank plans to build only one ATM. The bank has only one branch and has only one ATM machine. So we need not worry about multiple ATMs accessing the bank database. We need not to be worried about the concurrency control protocols or the concurrency control algorithms in this project. This is just for simplicity. The bank does not make any change to the information in the database while a user is accessing the ATM. As you know, when a user using the ATM machine to do some transaction, at the same time, any of the staffs of the bank could not access the bank database, because if they want to do that, we need to consider some concurrency control algorithms to prevent from data inconsistency and such problems that you are familiar with them in bachelor degree in, for example, operating system course and the database course. So for simplicity, we consider that at any time, just one transaction could be executed at this system. Okay. And the third simplicity assumption is that the bank trusts on the ATM to access them and manipulate the information in the database without significant security measures, because we defined some limitations, some constraints for this system, and there is no need to consider more complex approaches and complex algorithms for security issues. Next, we talk about other scenarios that we could use in these ATM systems. For example, at the first approaching the ATM, the user should experience the following sequence of events, the following scenario. This scenario, in this scenario, at first, the screen should display a welcome message, such as we saw in this figure. At first, the screen shows a welcome message and the user should enter an account number and then provide his or her PIN number. After that, the ATM machine should contact with database bank to know if there is any account number the same with this one. Okay, if there is an account number for this account, there is an account at the bank database for this account number, we fetch its PIN, its registered PIN, and compare it with this prepared PIN. If these are the same, the system should prepare a main menu for user. So please note this scenario. that is written in this slide, the screen displays welcome and prompts the user to enter an account number. Then the user enters a 5-digit account number using the keypad, and this scenario continues with the other steps of this scenario. In this step, excuse me, after uh, providing a 5-digit account number, the screen prompts the user to enter PIN as I talked before, and then the user enters a 5-digit PIN using a keypad, using the keypad. If the user enters a valid account number and correct PIN for that account, this validation is done by contacting with database, bank database. The screen displays a main menu, such as this one. Let me go ahead. This main menu should be viewed for the user, which give some possibilities to the user. The first option led to the user to define a balance inquiry transaction. The second one, the user could use it for withdrawal from the account, and the third option led the user to deposit more money to his or her account, and the last option led the user to exit from her or his profile in the ATM session. Okay, so this item said that if the user enters a valid account number and correct PIN for that account, the screen displays the main menu, such as that you saw just now. If the user enters an invalid account number or an incorrect PIN, the screen displays an appropriate message, and then the ATM returns to step 1. The step 1 is this one. So in the case of providing an invalid account number or incorrect PIN, the system should view a display message again and provide a user with and prompt a user with account number and go ahead through this scenario to enter successfully to the system. Okay. After that, if the user enters one, the one for this option, for the first option of our main menu. Okay, if enters one to make a balance inquiry, the screen displays the user's account balance. To do this, the system should contact with bank database and retrieve the balance of balance field of the related account. To do so, the ATM must retrieve the database from bank database, and I said this to you. Okay. For the second option of our main menu, the second option, initiate a transaction for withdrawal money. To do this, the user should enter the number 2 to make withdrawal transaction For this aim, the screen displays a menu of standard withdrawal amounts, as you have seen in real ATM machines, and an option to cancel the transaction. This is shown by figure here. As you know, in this figure, after the user successfully entered to the system and select the withdrawal option, the system provides the user a menu such as this, which includes some standard amounts of money to give to the user and a cancel option to cancel the transaction. Okay. You can read these steps. Let me to don't read them. These steps altogether define the scenario of withdrawal transaction, and after this another scenario is considered at this requirement document. Okay, it's here. For the third option, which is the deposit transaction, to make a deposit, we have seen, we see a specific scenario for this option, and you could read these steps. There are trivial for ATM system because all of you have used the services of the ATM systems, and these steps are the same as you have experienced before, so there is no need to read all of these scenarios at the class. We have read some of these scenarios, but others let me to skip others. All of them are similar, and you can read yourselves. Okay, this is all of these slides define a simple requirement document. At this session, you learned, you find how to document, how to prepare a document to specify the some software system such as ATM. In the next session, we start to analyze this requirement document to detect analysis classes. We will teach you some skills, some techniques to detect implementation classes, to detect analysis classes, to extract them from requirement document. For this aim, we will do some processing over this requirement document to detect nouns and noun phrases as initial classes, and to detect verbs and verb phrases as methods of our classes. So we will talk about this next session. At this session, the number of students that attended to this class are few, and I hope all of your friends attend to the class next session. The next session will be at Tuesday. So if you have any problem about our talks, you can ask your questions. Miss Mariam, there is no need to write their codes, but we will define the classes at the implementation phase. And details of code, we will ignore those details because those details are not the scope in the scope of our course. We just define classes and objects in this course at the programming level. And yes, I will send the PDF for you, and I'll send an extra video material to explain this uh, case study more fluently. A professor from Sydney University named Dr. Farzad Sanati have prepared some video courses. There are 4 parts, 4 videos in YouTube about this case study. And if you have a problem with my speaking skill, you can find more about this case study at those video materials. I'll send the link of those videos to you via group. Thanks a lot. Very and we have been thanks a lot to know you, and we thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Okay, Miss Mariam, I'll send you just after the class. The time is over. If you have no question, we postpone the other materials, continuing of this lecture to the next session, and let me to finish the meeting. Thank you. Have a nice day. See you next session. Is it available to change the class day? I'm sorry, I just can't have a lecture for you Sunday and Tuesday. And it is difficult to change the course day because your friends may not want to change the day of this course. Okay. See you next session. Bye for now. Have a good night.